Hi, I'm John Geddes, Mayor of the City of Rock Hill, and today we're going to talk about Rock Hill and economic development. We've got our chairman of RHEDC, Matt Dosh, who works for Comporium on your day job.
My day job, that's
What's your
right.
title at Comporium?
EVP and Chief Operating Officer.
All right, so he's much smarter than I am, so we're going to have a roll at it and see where we go on all this. First of all, Matt, thanks for your time that you spend with RHEDC, but some people watching this may not really know what RHEDC is, so give us a little synopsis of what your charge is.
Absolutely, and really it's a labor of love. It's one of the things that I do that I really enjoy doing, and I'm honored to be able to serve as chair for the next 2 years. I've already been working with RHEDC for probably over 10 already.
Wow.
So RHEDC is a 501c3 that is made up of business leaders who partner with the city and sort of governmental economic developers to make sure that the community is growing and that we have a vibrant pipeline of economic development projects coming to town. By economic development projects, I really mean new businesses coming to town that can provide good paying jobs to the people in the community, as well as helping businesses to grow and sort of homegrown growth that also provides those same jobs.
And that's sort of changed over the last 40 years. And, 40, and we won't spend a lot of time on our history, but it's a good history. Some 40 years ago or thereabouts, RHEDC was created. The idea behind creating RHEDC, as best you can understand and believe and know.
Yeah, it was a very, my understanding is it was a very targeted mission 40 years ago. And it was really about, at the time, the idea of office parks and industrial parks was a relatively new idea. So at that time, business leaders and community leaders in town got together and said, we need to be doing this kind of development, this kind of real estate-based development in order to attract business to our community. And for a long time, that's what RHEDC was about, partnering with the city and creating and then growing businesses within office parks over time. And then more recently, the world has gotten more complicated and more exciting. And so the last big project was sort of a modern version of an office park in making sure that downtown Rock Hill was vibrant and strong. And so RHEDC did all the traditional things we normally did, but we also got involved in workforce development in a big way, and some other community placemaking activities in recognition that today, in order to attract industry, you don't just need, a relatively inexpensive labor pool. You need educated workforce. You need to businesses want to land in a place with a high quality of life, with things for their employees to do, and the idea of live, work, play. And so that's what the Downtown Knowledge Park project has been about in recent years.
Yeah, it's just amazing when you sit here and think about it. The business parks that you mentioned, they're all full.
Yes.
Downtown
Yes.
and Knowledge Park Action Plan. It's not over. I mean, it's sustainable on its own now. So another chapter of success. We're not turning the page by any means, but feel pretty good about where we've gotten.
We are, and I think we stumbled into doing something at the exact right time over the past year, coming out of COVID. And given the success we've had in recent years, and the community has just been booming. I mean, I think, and either you're attuned to it, or you talk to somebody who hasn't been here in 5 years, and they pointed out to you that man, there is just so much more going on downtown with Fountain Park, at Riverwalk with all of the outdoor sports amenities, at the indoor sports complex over at University Center, and just the generic growth from a business and retail perspective and restaurants all over town. So we've certainly been growing. Coming out of COVID, the RHEDC leadership decided this would be a really good time to take stock of where we are, to do a little bit of strategic planning to figure out what the next 3, 5, 10 years looks like, because the world is different. COVID has changed a lot of things from a business perspective. The economy is a little bit dicey right now. And so back to your point, though, the timing is really good because we've been very successful in one way. And I think the study that we've undertaken has proven that we will continue to be successful, but probably in a slightly different way. The city's bigger. The past 40 years, we really had to make the opportunity.
Right.
Not just RHEDC, but everybody in town had to sort of create the opportunity and sell the community and jumpstart opportunities. Now that's happening. So the question is, there's going to be growth. Is it the right kind of growth? Is it the growth we want?
Right.
And going back to the idea of is what is going to provide those good, high-paying jobs that is going to lift the entire community. And that's really a whole level of sophistication beyond what we've done in the past that we're focused on now.
That's well said. Just in my opinion, where we've got to get to is a whole different ballgame than what we've done in the past. Mm-hmm. But we can't lose sight of what we've done in the past has been so successful. We can build upon it.
Right.
You know, when talking about downtown, I mean, I tell everyone this: downtown didn't really change until Fountain Park was built. When Fountain Park was brought online just some 8 years ago, mm-hmm. it's like we just took off in downtown. So we learned something, that public engagement, bringing people together. And just to see us go into other areas of our community with that kind of focus and that kind of track record really is an exciting time for me. How about RHEDC?
And that's really a good example of sort of what I'm talking about. It wasn't that long ago, and I remember Comporium was working with the city mm-hmm. on the idea of Fountain Park and sort of that public-private partnership around the park. And part of that was testing the idea of performing arts downtown. Mm-hmm. And if you'll recall, with the Arts Council, we turned one of our old office buildings, an old bank building, into that performing arts center. And it's kind of funny to think about now, but then it was truly a test to see if anybody would come downtown after dark.
And they did.
And actually, and I remember the very first performance that we had, I got off at Dave Lyle Boulevard and was driving down Main Street and saw clumps of people walking from McHale's, mm-hmm. our one restaurant at the time, walking from McHale's down Main Street to the first performance there, and it was really exciting. And now we look back at that and think, well, of course, you know, but that didn't come with without a lot of planning and a lot of work. So that's the idea. Now that downtown and the Knowledge Park concept is really has been successful and is continuing to grow in a variety of different ways. Where can RHEDC add value and aim its resources to inject some of that same vitality into other parts of town?
Well, let's not leave Fountain Park quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
You alluded to something I want to make sure we talk about, and that's the Performing Arts Center.
Yes.
You're actually the chair of that board as well?
I am.
And what's the name of that board?
It is the Arts Center at Fountain Park.
Arts Center at Fountain Park. That's
Easy
right.
to remember.
Yes. So tell us about it.
And that has been, again, probably since the genesis of Fountain Park. And that's a discussion, as you know, that goes back to 2010, mm-hmm. 2011 between Comporium and the city. And we had a couple of visions for Fountain Park. One was the park itself. Another part of the vision is a hotel on Main Street, on the Main Street side of the park. And another part of the vision is a Performing Arts Center on the Black Street side. And that is, the Performing Arts Center in particular has been, it's just a huge project. Mm-hmm. It's probably, you know, what we're envisioning is 800 to 1,000 seat theater. Probably the closest example around here would be the Night Theater mm-hmm. in Uptown Charlotte. So if you can imagine the Night Theater being located at the end of Fountain Park, that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
And that's probably a $35 million project. So there's been a lot of work, low level, under the radar works for 10 years to get ready for that project. And this summer we hired our first executive director, and we got our first bit of funding from the General Assembly. And based on that and some seed funding that about a dozen community members put together, we are going full bore into that project. We are this week, our responses to an RFP are due from architects, mm-hmm. And this winter we'll be working on really hammering out the vision of what that building looks like, and probably by the spring we'll be deep into the quiet period of a campaign for that project. So it's something that, you know, people have heard about off and on over the years, but it's really gathering steam, and hopefully within 5 years we'll have a very cool 800-seat theater right on Black Street in downtown Rock Hill.
It'll be more than a theater.
Well, yeah, a performing arts center, right. Absolutely. And if you think about, and the idea would be primarily it's home to local arts organizations, right. The Rock Hill Symphony being a great example. The Rock Hill Symphony has been very, very successful in the first half a dozen years of its existence, and is currently playing at South Point High School, which is great. But I think everyone would agree having the symphony play downtown would be a great thing. There are, at any given time, between 6 and 10 community theater groups in town. There's ballet groups and so on. So we really want to, job number one will be to serve those groups. Job number two will be to partner with the schools and make sure that there is a very strong educational component with Clinton, Winthrop, York Tech, as well as the public schools in the area. And really, we've talked already to, for example, Chester County Schools. And this kind of facility, the closest one would be in uptown Charlotte. And as we all know, with the growth in the area, that is not quite as convenient from a educational standpoint as it used to be. So a very strong educational component. And then third, of course, would be what you kind of think of, the Friday night, Saturday night, going to a show, seeing a performance, the symphony or a play or a touring company of some kind.
It's exciting.
It is.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
So to go out of downtown now, to look at other areas of our community, where do you see RHEDC focusing if we feel like downtown's somewhat sustainable now?
Right.
Where do we need help?
Well, interestingly, there are two dynamics in sort of economic development dynamics that are coalescing in the same geography. And so in answer to your question, as you well know, and you've been integrally involved in the Clinton Connection, which in my mind is very much a community development plan for South Rock Hill. But with the city's annexation of all that land in sort of beyond that along the I-77 corridor, there are a couple of things going on. One is that need to develop a workforce and to provide very meaningful economic opportunities to every member of our community, and that's partly what the Clinton Connection is about, among other things. But the other thing is, and I think you mentioned this a little bit earlier, we're kind of running out of traditional industrial development land to be developed. That inventory is sort of low, and so the South Rock Hill annexation area opens up a lot of opportunity. So RHEDC is very excited in working with the city and working with private developers and working with Clinton College and other people associated with the Clinton Connection to really knit together sort of a Knowledge Park, a multifaceted, multidimensional plan similar to Knowledge Park but different, that really ties together both the workforce in South Rock Hill and all over the city and markets that. And hopefully we can land some significant industry to continue to invest in our community.
Yeah, protecting the culture and the character of the neighborhoods in that area. But also bringing these high-paying wage jobs to Rock Hill. Until we can get those high-paying wage jobs in Rock Hill, we're going to continue to muddle to some degree. And that really is what we have to get over. You agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's sort of interesting. There are national and even international economic forces that are always at work, right? Positive or negative. But certainly during practically my entire career, the local growth of this area, blessed by the growth in Charlotte, and the story, the access to the Charlotte airport, the access to the Charleston port. We are so blessed to have just an abundance of opportunity in this area. So the key is to be smart about it.
That's right.
And to not just be happy with whatever comes to us, but also to do what we can to provide a little bit of guidance to the kind of economic prosperity we want to see. And so now that becomes, looking around, who is being left behind? Who is this rising tide of economic opportunity not reaching? And figuring out how to bring those people along. And so it's an interesting challenge because it's a little more sophisticated and a little trickier.
Yeah, but it's a lot of fun.
It is.
It really is. So entrepreneurs, let's talk about entrepreneurs. Yeah. You're very involved with the Gravity Center in your role as RHEDC and personally. How does that help on the south side of Rock Hill especially?
I think it helps because there's more than one path to economic prosperity, right? And so the workforce development is sort of, it has become a multifaceted thing. One path would be sort of the high-paying, technology-driven jobs in large industrial settings. And York Tech certainly is a key role in educating people for those kind of jobs and helping place those people in those jobs. There are other opportunities that aren't quite so industrially focused, right? Whether you are an entrepreneur in the high-tech sense of the word, and you've got a great idea and you need a little bit of help in taking that idea to market, that's what the Gravity Center is for. That's what the BEL, the Black Enterprise Leadership League, is for. But then there are also old school kind of entrepreneurial jobs, which we now, the term is sort of lifestyle companies, right? But you just want to open, but you want to be your own businessman in a more traditional field of everything from, lawn care businesses to running your own private business in a more traditional way. I think the next phase of conversation is going to be recognizing that those are all complementary paths, and whether you're talking about York Tech and training for a job, in an industrial setting, or whether you're talking about a high-tech entrepreneur or a lifestyle entrepreneur, those are all paths to success, and all of those different personal qualities need to be, we need to create an environment where all of those can thrive. And I think South Rock Hill is a good example of that, because at the end of the day, South Rock Hill, it's a geography, right? But there are a lot of different kinds of people that live in South Rock Hill, and there's a lot of opportunity there. So how can we create opportunity for people with different sort of career aspirations or different lifestyle aspirations and help them along?
It's just, you alluded to this a minute ago, but it's just amazing to me to stop and think about where we find ourselves at this point in time in our history. When you look at jobs that have been outsourced or offshored, now being reshored, because we have a judicial system that people can have confidence in, and you can have supply chain issues in a large part go away. We're primed for that, while at the same time, because of the work we've seen in downtown Rock Hill, really bringing additional people to live in downtown, needing more services. So we have a real good opportunity in that regard. And then with a lot of work RHEDC, along with the Women's Art Initiative and the Arts Council and so many others, with these murals and other placemaking kind of things, we've just really got a moment in time where we can, really take a lick. I mean, we can make some things happen around here, and it's an exciting time. I know you feel that way as head of RHEDC, but if you had to guess, or if you had to, dream, really, what would you like to see us accomplish in the next 3 to 5 years here in Rock Hill?
I'd like to see us land a couple more big fish.
Yes.
We've had some experience, certainly attracting people like DIRT, the environmental office company, and Arrival, the bus company, and I think we need more of that. We've proven we can do it, so let's not just have those two examples, right? And let's fill some acreage around the area with some of those kind of companies. I think because when we do that, we've already got the infrastructure, like you're talking about. The table is set. York Tech is such an amazing community partner. The school district, Rock Hill School District, with the Applied Technology Center.
Ron Rivera does such a great job.
That is such a cool facility and such a great gem for the community. We've got things happening all over the place, the placemaking stuff. So it's really just a matter of closing some deals, if you want to put it that way. Getting on the radar of some decision makers and plant managers, because that's what we're going for. We're doing all of these things in order to provide opportunity for individuals and their families so that they stay in town. One big thing that the reason that Comporium and I got involved in a lot of these conversations 10 years ago was because we were seeing it was hard to attract people, the people that we were trying to attract to the company. Rock Hill, even 15 years ago, was not necessarily seen as a draw for the high-tech talent that Comporium needed. And so we started investing in these conversations and these programs because the community needs to be a draw as much as the company does. And man, what a difference a decade makes. And absolutely, Rock Hill is part of our pitch now in drawing talent. So we just need to get that flywheel moving faster and faster.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Matt, thanks for all your work. It is a labor of love, but I know that labor is quite a bit on some days. And so we appreciate that, your leadership and your vision for where we're going to go. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for joining us today. We'll do it again shortly, I hope. And we, again, thank RHEDC for all their hard work going forward.